I just started like tearing, and she's like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I promised you that I was going to help you out, but I'm just so tired. But she said to me, she's like, Mommy, I know you're trying your best. I know that you're doing this for us. It's okay. I'm going to do good in my science test. And I was even crying even more.
Hey there, it's Dr. Ryan Corte, and I'm looking for North Carolina licensed optometrists or those interested in becoming licensed in the state of North Carolina to join my team. If that's you or somebody you know, reach out to me on social media or email me at ryan.court1@gmail.com. Now, enjoy today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ryan Reflects. My name is Dr. Ryan Corte. And today I have a first on the podcast. So I have an optometrist and colleague who I haven't met in person who reached out and said, I have a story to tell. And I love when people reach out to me first and foremost and say, I have a story to tell. I want to share my story to our colleagues. And so Dr. Alma Regnault, thank you so much for being on the show today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Like I said, this is exciting to be here. I'm definitely, a listener. I watch you on the clips on Instagram, and I love what you're conveying and what, just bringing us together. That's so great.
Well, I really appreciate that. And when you had reached out and said, hey, I think others could really be inspired or motivated by my story, and it's a unique one. I think we all have a really unique story to tell. But when you kind of just gave me a little bit of a peek behind the curtains, I was intrigued. So I guess we'll start off very basic, right? Very simple. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Venezuela, in Caracas, and we moved here when I was very little. I was about 2 years old or so. So I pretty much grew up here in the United States, mostly in a small town, which now has grown a lot, of Western Florida, South Florida. And so I, basically grew up here, a lot of influence with my mother, of course, and my grandma, very strong women. I think that definitely, I thank them for their journey and how they inspired me. Kind of, type of ladies that were always dressed to the nines, but yet if the toilet seat or something broke down, they would be like, you know what, I got this, I'll figure it out,
I
type
love
of
that.
ladies. So, the tire blew out. Just like my mom would say, it's okay, I got it, I know how to do it. So definitely, inspiration of strong women. And I have to say, at the beginning, I thought I was going to be a dentist. And I went, the fact of shadowing. And I knew it was something definitely in the healthcare, field. But after working for a little bit with a dentist who is actually still our family dentist, I was like, you know what? I don't think this is for me. But I always tell him, because I do see him, every year. I always told him, once I decided to venture into the optometry field, I told him, you know what, I want to definitely emulate. If I ever become a boss, I want to be just like you, because he was always so respectful, so wonderful with all of us, with his patients, and so passionate about his profession. So he definitely, anything that you do, anything that, whether it's not related to your field, you always learn and you take those tidbits, with you. So here comes the story where our family, optometrist one day said, when I was a little bit confused, I didn't know whether I would to do dentistry or even thought of maybe some type of speech pathology. And she said to me, hey, why don't you come and work with me, for a summer? And that's where it really started. I was inspired. I definitely felt a sense of like, I can see myself doing this, and the impact, that she had in the community. And I felt like it was a beautiful profession. And so since I always grew up here in this small town, I went to Nova for undergrad. And
Okay.
at that moment, I didn't even want to apply to optometry school at Nova, because it was the only optometry school in my area. I wanted to venture out. It was my moment, of like, okay, I want to leave my house, I want to just, for a little bit, I want to just grow up. And that's where and I'm going to be honest, I applied. My number one choice was in Boston. And I'm like,
Okay.
that's going to be the one. And, my mom, of course, she was like, well, you have to have a plan B, you never know. And the doctor who I worked for, she was or is from Puerto Rico. And she was like, you know what? maybe you should apply to the school, in San Juan. I think, they have a great program. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But Boston was my thing. And yeah, I was very confident. I went for an interview and everything. And I was like, yeah, for people that I don't know how many things have probably changed. I mean, I've been out, practicing for about maybe 16, 17 years or so. And so yeah, they denied my
You're like,
admission,
no.
and I was absolutely heartbroken. I was in tears, and I remember actually my mom saying, "Well, listen, what are you going to do? Are you going to cry about it? Are you going to do something about it?" And I had an interview with a doctor in Puerto Rico, and it was, back in the day, there was no Zoom; it was over the telephone.
Hmm.
And I remember that interview being so hard, even harder than the one in Boston. And he was a doctor. He was from Nigeria. And he asked me so many questions, that, I mean, I remember sweating that interview. And I didn't even know at that moment. I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going to go. And it just so happened, I mean, those were my two options. And Puerto Rico invited me in. And I said, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this. And I went in. And once I arrived, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm in an island. I can't drive back home.
No.
But there was no room for turning back. I was like, I'm going to do this. And it turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. The fact of me being at everything happens for a reason type of thing.
Hmm.
It was fantastic. I mean, it was hard professionally and personally because I had never been by myself, and it was things that I wasn't used to. The power would go out, the Wi-Fi would just, I would, many times I would drive and I would, land in a one of whatever, a pothole, and then it would be like, oh my God, my tire blew out, and I had to figure it out, and I had
Yeah.
a midterm or something I had to study, and it was so hot that I had to like go to Starbucks and stay there for for hours because that's the one that had central AC, and but those things, it's what shaped me, and made me grow. And in hindsight, it was the best place that I could have chosen. Also too, from a standpoint of the demographics, class was the same as, we would go in, it was all in English.
Hmm.
But clinic was crazy because they would take us to areas that were very rural. We would study it and we would see it clinically. So, we would have interns that would come from Chicago and from all parts of, a lot of Canadians as well. And they're like, oh my God, did you see we had, somebody had diabetic retinopathy? I'm like, you see that every day here. So from that standpoint was incredible. We got to see firsthand what we were studying. And I think that gave us a little bit of a different edge,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, and I'm so proud of being able to have that opportunity and saying that I went to that school. So that was one part of the journey. And once I came back, I moved to New York City and
Mm.
ventured there in Manhattan, and I worked for I don't know if we can mention names, for a corporate optometry. And that was also an incredible, opportunity for me, just kind of a newbie coming out, and how the regional manager at that time really taught us to be leaders, even though we were not the owners or it wasn't a sublease, we were contracted by the company. They taught us how to be leaders. They taught us about the sense of, the metrics a little bit,
Hmm.
about what it was to run, the business. And even though, yeah, we didn't have much of a say, but still, it was kind of a friendly competition between, okay, how many, are you talking about optos? Are you talking about this? Are you telling your story of who you are to other patients? Are you going in and telling, the person that comes with your patient, hey, when was the last time that you had an eye exam? So I learned a lot of those attributes there. And after that, a few years after, we decided, my husband and I, to have kids, and New York, didn't look so great at that time, and we decided to come back to Florida. So I
You
also
didn't love
think
those
that,
winters?
yeah, I didn't like those winters, and just thinking with the people and the stroller and the thing, it was time for us
Hmm.
to come back. And the beauty about also our profession is that, and that, we can evolve, as we evolve, we kind of evolve with our profession. We're not just pigeonholed in one place, you know. I
Hmm.
was able to experience the corporate side of optometry. And then when I came back here, where I was a little in a different point of my life, where obviously my priority was my family. I mean, I was a new mom. And of course, those corporate hours of being, you know, Saturdays and Sundays for me, you know, years back, I was, yeah, let's bring it. I'm good. But at that moment when I, you know, had evolved personally, I felt like that wasn't the right niche for me anymore.
Hmm.
So I decided to go into more geriatrics, you know, with more of a medical setup with, you know, some colleagues of mine that worked also for a big medical company. And my hours were, I would say, you know, still a lot of work, but my hours were a little bit more flexible. I would be able to leave a little bit, you know, instead of 6 o'clock or whatnot, I would be able to leave a little bit earlier. So it gave me the flexibility to be able to go back to my baby, you know, to my daughter. And that was, you know, awesome. And, but later on, as the years progressed too, I felt like, okay, I needed to go ahead and do something, you know, else, you know, and grow professionally somewhere else. You know, I could, and this is for, you know, all optometrists. I mean, it's okay where you feel that you feel comfortable where you're at. That is okay. For my journey, I felt like I always, wherever I went, I gave it my all. You know, I felt like even though that it was, you know, my practice or whatnot, or I might have not gone back to that clinic because I was more filling in, you know, at different offices
Sure.
and different clinics. Um, you know, when I was there, when I had that patient in front of me, is, you know, they're my family members, you know, I'm giving it my all. But I felt that I could give even more, you know. And here's where the
So
full circle kind of journey. Yeah, go ahead.
no, so what I'm hearing is that it didn't matter where you were seeing the patient, what modality, you were taking care of the
Exactly.
person sitting in your chair. I love that.
Absolutely. You know, it's what made it, I think at the end, it's just being the human connection, you know, just being genuine and really just caring and listening, you know, for a second. You know, I had, as I was telling you, being with taking care of more of the geriatric side, you know, I felt like they were like my grandparents, you know, saying, hey, you know, can you listen to me? You know, I have dry eye, or I have this, or I can't see out of my glasses. Sometimes I had a patient, I never forget. I looked at the glasses and the glasses were just filthy. They were just so
Oh
dirty.
yeah.
And I went in there and I just grabbed some soap and water and I scrubbed it and I gave it back. And she's like, my goodness, I can see so much better, you know? And, you know, they would get up and they would just, you know, give me a hug. I had, you know, and they were just so incredibly thankful. I mean, just thankful, you know, for that moment. They would say,
Hmm.
oh my God, are you doctor? Are you going to be here next week? And I really didn't know because it was an ever changing, moving parts of, you know, scheduling. But I
Yeah.
would say, well, yeah, maybe. But, you know, so just so, you know, that human connection and of course the love for the field, but it's really what drives me, you know, and it still does. And precisely that I always felt the need that I wanted to be in a place where I called my own, that it was my place where I got to follow up the patient, you know, from, you know,
Hmm.
year to year. So the whole thing of filling in here and there. And again, I learned throughout those years, I learned so much because every clinic and every, you know, even EMR system or even all of those things, you know, kind of kept me, you know, like, okay, let me see how they work. How do they do this? Let me figure this out, you know? Um, and definitely there's a positive, you know, that comes out of that.
Oh yeah.
But I felt that, yeah, I felt like, you know what, I wanted a place where I could just say, okay, this is my place. It's one place where I get to go every day and where I get to, you know, follow up with the patient. And, you know, again, just having, I mean, the possibility, even flirting with the possibility of being a business owner even 5 years ago, I would say, now get out of here. I mean, there's just no way I could ever, you know, be able to do that, you know?
It's
So
daunting. Yeah.
yeah, it's daunting and scary. And also thinking, I'm like, is it too late? You know, is it too late in the game? You know, I'm not, you know, a fresh, you know, new grad and be like, all right, I got this, you know, I mean, just thinking of like, I mean, how can I do this? And yeah, the whole thing of all the experiences and all those years and all those places with, you know, different clinics and working for different doctors all had to happen in order for me to be able to say, okay, I think I'm ready for this new journey. And again, I mean, I sat down one day talking to my husband and I was like, you know what? I just feel, because he's like, what is it that you want? You can do whatever you want. And I said, well, I'm just scared. And because he's like, you can fill in for the rest of your time and that's okay. But I felt for me that I could give it, that there was an extra, chapter of evolution
You wanted
that
more. Yeah,
I
you wanted to
wanted
evolve
more.
more.
And I had to understand that, I heard something, I don't know, this is funny, but it was actually a really, really amazing clip that I heard. I think it was like Steve Harvey or something that I came across, that he said something like, if you want to be, if you have that extra, if you have that extra thing of being, being extraordinary, you have to learn that success, or the joy that you're looking for is not a comfortable procedure, that you have
Mm-hmm.
to learn, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in the journey of going through, and this is something I tell my kids as well. It's like, yeah, you have to study, you have to put in the effort, and across the board, I mean, the more you put in that effort, the more the reward you'll have at the other side. And yeah, I mean, I have to say that the doctor, this is kind of like the magical thing that happened. There was a doctor I had been working for many, many years at
Mm-hmm.
another practice, and also he inspired me to the way how he ran his business, the way how he treated his staff, very much family practice. And I was there Saturdays, I was there, whenever they needed me, I was there. And after COVID, he reached out to me and said, hey, I bought another practice and I was wondering if you can come in and help me out, just to fill in more days. And I said, absolutely. Where?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it's in Weston. And I said, wait a minute, where? And which one? And I realized that it was the same practice where actually I had shadowed the original
Oh my
doctor 20 so
gosh.
years ago. So yeah.
Wow.
So,
Talk about coming
so
full
that,
circle, Alma.
yeah, totally. So, I mean, not even thinking at that moment that I was like, yeah, sure. I know the place. I know the demographic. I mean, this is my hometown, this is the place where I grew up. So I said, yeah, of course, I'll help you out. And so I started to work the practice, and I started because he is very successful. He has other practices, and I started to be the doctor that was more there consistently. And he would joke around. He's like, I come in and they're like, where's Dr. Regnault? I don't want. I was like, you don't want to see me? No, where's the other doctor? So it just kind of the moment of a perfect, I don't know, opportunity that he was thinking of selling it because he was kind of overwhelmed. He was okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing well in the other ones. And I said, wait, don't sell it. Sell it to me. And once I
Oh
said that, it
man.
was one of those things that I said, wait, what did I just say? Because I had no idea how this would come into fruition. And he also such a great mentor. He's like, what? I think you would be amazing. I think you would kill it. You have all the ingredients. I think you would do phenomenally well.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'll help you with whatever you need, whatever mentorship. But he kind of what he said, which was so beautiful. It's like, you, of all the years that you've been with us, and all the times that you've allowed for me to be with my family, he's telling me this, I
Mm-hmm.
have to pay it forward in the sense of like, you know what? I mean, you have my 100% blessing and I'll help you throughout the whole process. And
That's amazing.
yeah, and then I was like, okay, went back to my husband and said, I mean, how can we do this,
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's one of those things that, asking questions as basic as it is. I mean, I'm like, okay, a little bit at the beginning of like, I didn't even know what, and I'm completely transparent, what an ROI. I mean, all those terminologies of business, I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't know. So I started to kind of gather with my friends that were in finance, with people, because I mean, that's one of the huge things. You surround with people that are successful. Even this doctor that, the doctor that sold me the practice, asking him questions and absolutely being like, you know what, and it's okay to ask those questions. I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? What do you suggest? I have a friend she's a CFO of a company. And I told her, I called her one time, like, listen, I don't understand this piece of paper. Can you help me out? And I'm sorry. And she's like, listen, stop saying you're sorry. You are an expert of eyes. Okay. You didn't go to business school. It's
You
okay.
nailed it.
I'm here to help you. So, I call you when I have, conjunctivitis or I have some pain in my eye. So it's okay to ask those questions. And that's kind of, after she said that, it kind of freed me in the sense of like, you know what? I'm here to learn. I'm here. I'm
Hmm.
taking into this journey 1,000%. I'm still learning, but I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for it, and here I am. So the owner of Weston Eye Center, which was the original place where optometry, became my love, where I decided, okay, this is the profession I want to seek. So it's really, really full circle. And it's
That's
so much
incredible.
more than just any place, any other place that any other city, this place hits its home, and being able to like see patients and being able to have my little girls come in and know the community. I mean, it's special. It's special. Yeah.
What a powerful story that you went through every step of the journey and landed back in your hometown and were able to even purchase the practice that you were inspired to become an optometrist in. That is so powerful. A couple questions I have for you because you give me a nice broad landscape. The first thing that kind of jumped out at me was being raised by such strong, powerful, intentional women, that weren't afraid to work hard and to kind of pave the way for future generations. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how that's, molded and inspired your journey?
Yeah, that makes me a little bit emotional because yeah, I come from women that, that definitely their strengths, and it inspired me in my journey. I mean, I knew the
Hmm.
moments where I was perhaps the moments where I felt like I would have been or set for failure, I would think of my mom and I would say, when I was in Puerto Rico and I would say, okay, what would she do? She would figure it out. I'm like, you know what? I can do this. I can figure it out. And that's what I want to be for my girls. I want to, and even though our circumstances are different, my mom was a single mom and it was mostly my grandmother and my mother who raised me. And the fact of my mom always said to me and my grandmother as well is like, you can do whatever you want. When I came to her and I told her, crying one day when I realized I didn't want to do dentistry. And she's like, what's wrong with you? And I was in tears. I'm like, I don't know what I want to do in my life. And she's like, it's okay. Thank goodness you figured out you don't want to be a dentist because then you would have been a terrible one. It's like
Yeah.
whatever you choose to do, whether you are the nail tech or whether you are, whatever, the picker up or whatever, just make sure that you are the best at it, give it your
Mm.
all. That's the main thing. And always caring that whatever you do in life will always give you more tools in your toolbox for you to be able to use it in some way or another, as you come, as the journey of life. And yeah, definitely, those two women, absolutely 1,000% inspirational. I can't even give you another layer of the fact that my mom, um, being, that's another story, but she did real estate for over 15 years, and when I was in optometry school, she's like, you know what, I'm going to become an optician. And I'm like, what do you mean you're going to become an optician? She's like, yeah, I think I like it, I'm going to go. She said she sat down, she was 50 years old when she sat down at Broward College, and she went through the whole program, got NBO, ABO, sorry, certified, and CLE. She became an optician, and now, 17 years with the manifestation that one day we would work together. Right now she's here, in the optical side. So it's amazing, so giving and
She's at your
passing.
practice right now.
Yeah, she's at
Oh,
my
that's so
practice
cool.
right now. Yes. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah, which is like as of like a week ago, because
Oh my
she
goodness.
had her job, but she decided, she's like, what am I doing? This is the moment. This is the moment for us. So it's like, it's so incredible. And listen, by all means, I mean, this is so hard,
Hmm.
but I had a moment with my girls a few days ago, obviously learning, as a business owner, all of the things that come into play. We've been hitting it hard, and I mean, obviously with my champions, I have my husband, I have my mom and this and that, but I was helping my 9-year-old study for her science test. And, the minute I sat down, I started to doze off because I was so
Tired.
tired. I
Yeah.
was so tired. And every night for the past few, months, it's been kind of like that. They start reading and then, 3 seconds and I'm out. So my 9-year-old was studying for a scientist and I promised her, I'm like, listen, I'm going to help you. So she was talking about the weathering, the sediments, the erosion on the earth. And I was just out cold and I fell asleep. And she's like, mommy, you always fall asleep. And there was a moment there that I had such an enormous amount of guilt. And this is kind of silly, but again, it just, I guess, emotions of just fatigue and just
Hmm.
overwhelm. And I started crying.
Hmm.
And she looked at me in disbelief because, I don't know if you have kids. I think you
I
do.
do. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've seen some. So, when, I don't know, anyways, I don't cry often, but when she saw me and she's like, whoa, like mom is crying. I just started like tearing and she's like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I promised you, that I was going to help you out, but I'm just so tired. And she looked at me and she said, and this is going to make me emotional and cry again, but she said to me, she's like, mommy, I know you're trying your best. I know that you're doing this for us, and you're doing the very, very best, to grow this business. And it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to do good in my science test. And I was even crying even more. But the fact that she gets it and kind of inspire my little girls, that is, everything to me. And so is passing the generation and also the thing of like you can do anything you want. This is what I tell her, when she gets nervous, she has a tennis something or she has something, walking into something that a camp that she's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do this right. I'm like, it's okay. You have to try it. If you don't like it, it's okay, and that's what I tell, my little girls. And I want for young optometrists, to know that it's okay. It's okay to try. It's okay to ask. It's okay to evolve. You don't have to stay in one place. You always, even if you didn't like that place, you always learn something from that place, or experience or whatnot, and so it's never too late, to start something new. And it's okay to ask all the ridiculous questions that I'm still asking every day.
Well, always be curious.
Yeah,
You mentioned something throughout this. Your mom gave you the confidence to pivot away from dentistry. You're right. If you went down the pathway of dentistry and you became a dentist, you wouldn't be a very good dentist if you weren't inspired to be a dentist, right?
exactly.
So she allowed you to learn that there's a way about going about life and giving yourself that confidence to change directions. And it sounds like that's what you're instilling in not only in your life's journey, but in your children,
Yeah.
which that's going to go on for years to come. They're never going to forget those moments. And that's such a sweet moment. My wife definitely had a moment where she was trying, I can't remember exactly what she was doing, but she was working so hard on something and it didn't come out how she wanted.
Yeah.
And this is about a year ago. My daughter looks at her and goes, "It's okay, mommy. You don't have to be perfect."
Yeah. Yeah, those are the moments that you realize that that they're here in this world to teach
It's
you
okay.
things as well, they're there as teachers, so it's profound. It really is.
It really is. So you went through working for a corporation and then doing a lot of fill in to then, acquiring working in and then acquiring your own private practice. That was your childhood or the practice that you had shadowed to get into optometry. For those that kind of listen to that component of your story, what do you want them to take away about that entire process and how you were always taking care of the patient, right? You were always doing what was best for that patient sitting in your chair. But what did you learn throughout that process?
So I learned, just being genuine, I think is, the most important thing of really the fact that I love my profession, and no matter wherever I went, and there was places I have to admit that I walked in and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to be here, or
Hmm.
there was places that it was just very disorganized, or there was a lot of patients out there, and like I would miss, there was no lunch, in the sense of like, okay, you had to be there at 8 a.m. and then until 5 o'clock without a break. I mean, there was moments that I'm like, oh man, I don't like this, it would bring, like, I would start good. And then at the end, I'm like, I'm so tired. And just realizing, I mean, those were the days that were not so great, but then there were days that were wonderful. I would go to places like the previous doctor that, sold me this practice, at his other practices. I would love going to work there because I felt that there was a sense of respect for both the patient and the doctor, for our time, for, and for the staff as well. And there was a harmony, to it. So all of, that journey, whether you decide, again, it's okay to be a fill-in doctor, that is okay.
Oh yeah.
Or to be at a private practice, or to be at the corporate, side of the practice. That's all fine, as long as you feel internally that makes you happy, that you wake up in the morning. Of course, there's days of days, but that you feel fulfilled, and at the end of the day, when you have that person sitting in, in your chair, when you're there, I really, really, really take a second to forget about, and this is something that I think I've acquired even better as the years of more practice, is to really shut out the noise and just look at the person that's in front of you and ask them, basic questions, listen to what they, what they're going through. And sometimes, we get more than we bargained for, and they tell you their whole life story, and you're like, oh my goodness. But yeah, that human connection is definitely, I think, what feeds and drives, the beauty about our profession, that in a moment of like 20 minutes or so, sometimes it can get a little bit longer. And yeah, I mean, that connection is undoubtedly, why I know I chose the right profession, and not having, a person just with their mouth open, no offense to the dental community, or, just being in an OR, the whole entire day, and then, making them see better. So
yeah, we
it's
really
beautiful.
do have some very genuine human interactions with our
Yeah.
patients where they come in and they're not in pain. They're not there for,
Yeah.
us to put out a fire, which is different than a lot of
Yeah.
healthcare.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I will say you've seen the good, it sounds like the bad and the ugly, and you try to take all of those lessons learned from some of the best places that you practiced and kind of instill it into your culture, your practice
Yeah,
culture. So you
absolutely.
acquired the practice. What are some things that you took away that you've since incorporated into your clinic?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm still learning. I'm still in the process of learning myself how to be a
Oh yeah.
business owner. I mean, I still say it and I'm like, wait, that's me. But I think the common ground here is respect, which is
Mm.
something that is so important in my household, with my own kids. For example, we went to change our phones the other day, that could take a little bit longer. My girls were sitting down with their coloring book, and the general manager approached me and said, hey, I just want to say your kids are so well behaved. And I said, no, thank you, but it all comes from what I teach them in the household, so,
Hmm.
and I want to instill the same thing here. There's a mutual respect between the patients, between my staff, because I want to be known as, a place where you feel that you can grow, that, yeah, that it's okay to make mistakes, that if you make a mistake, we'll go over it. And then, we'll try to find a solution and then to not make it again, and to be able to, we all learn from the process. But definitely respect is my number one thing for all of us, for the time,
Hmm.
for the patient, and because I feel like, yeah, if we all work, again, we'll have, there's always, what you said, putting fires is never perfect. But my number one thing is just being genuine and being respectful to one another, and I think that transcends, and people feel it. When the patient comes here and says, "Wow, this was such a great experience," and that's a win for me.
Not even meeting you in person, right? Not even knowing you personally. I can even just sense that from having a conversation with you that your core values, they kind of drive deep. And I love that. And you reference that you've been practicing for more than about 15 years. So you've seen this profession
Yeah.
evolve. How do you
Ah,
feel about the evolution of the profession and where do you kind of see it going in your career?
Well, I think that, we can't stop time. I think we have to definitely, there's a lot of new things and development of, with
Hmm.
like AI and technology, and like with everything, I feel like we can't be stuck, in the past. I think we
Hmm.
have to evolve as we have, kind of been saying myself, we all evolve and take the good things,
Hmm.
what we might be able to utilize it in our profession, hence with like, better technology or things that can speed up things that can make us more efficient, definitely, I'm against of, the whole thing of like, okay, no, you still need us, for us to do the refraction and for us to still be, I mean, that we can't lose that.
Hmm.
But there's of course the things that can help us, with like, let's say, I mean, I saw an advertisement last night of some, charting and thing, and it can help us to be more efficient, and that's okay. I feel we have to be open to taking the with technology, let's say, the pros, and then of course, there's that line, right, of where it becomes, you know not real, let's say, and we lose that connection. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I see it, more positive.
Well, you are a glass half full person just like me, and that's probably why you reached out. I will say, is there anything that really gets you excited about the future of this profession? If you go home and you're telling your girls like, "Hey, mom's a business owner now," and you know, and you're painting this picture for them, like, what are you excited about uh, with the future of optometry?
I'm excited about the fact of being able, I mean, there's many things I'm excited about, being able to see my patients, kind of their families, like when they come with children, let's say, to
Oh yeah.
grow, and be able to
Hmm.
see that and follow their journey, when I've been to places where they say, no, I've been with such doctor, since I was 10 years old, and now they're
Hmm.
going to college. I'm excited for that. I think that's really cool. I'm also excited for, new technology that I'm able to invest in the future, and more knowledge, and of being able to, for example, simple things to be able to show a patient, something that my dentist, going back to the dentist that he's still our dentist, he has, used this technology to be able to show you exactly where the cavity is,
It's
I
helpful.
think, yeah, for sure. I think to be able to have those tools and be able to, better diagnosing diseases, better medications. I mean, and treatment for our patients. I think that gets me excited for sure.
And so you have things you're excited about, and your journey has brought you to this point. But I'm sure that this journey did not come without its challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced throughout your optometric journey?
I mean, there's been throughout the years, definitely, as I was saying, being in places where I didn't feel like I had a voice,
Hmm.
being in places where I felt that things could or should be better for the patient as well as for the doctor. And those were moments where I would get frustrated. I would never stay quiet because of the fact that I was just a filling doctor, and perhaps
Hmm.
I didn't, I would never go back there, and who cares? I'm just there. I'll get my check and bye bye. I always, I'm like, they might not hear me out, but I'm at least going to, plant a seed and tell, whoever was in charge at the time, saying, hey, I think this could be done better, whether it went over their heads or not. But I felt inside, my core, that if I didn't speak up, if I didn't say it for the next generation or the next, whoever would come the next day or whatever, this could maybe be a better experience. Of course, the other thing is too, I would have liked to have more of, maybe in my years, I don't know now, have more knowledge of the business side of
Hmm.
optometry. I've been learning as I've been practicing, but I would have loved, I mean, yes, of course, there's more accessibility nowadays, and I think with technology and with the fact of, how we can reach out and be able to learn, courses online and this and that. But yeah, I would have loved to have more knowledge under my belt, that was why I never thought in my wildest dreams that being a business owner was a possibility, because I'm like, I'm not equipped, to do this. So I would have liked to have that. And those, yeah, definitely challenges that would have made it maybe
Hmm.
this process easier. But hey, listen, this is what I got, and that's okay.
Well, that's life. And the fact that you spoke up when you felt like things weren't aligning with what you believe is best for the patient and best for the doctor,
Yeah.
autonomy, well, you're paving kind of the pathway for those behind you. And then in
Hmm.
regards to your feedback on the business component of optometry, well, as your friend referenced, you went to school to become an optometrist, and even, they went to business school. So you're not going to them for eye health advice and they're not coming to you for business advice. So
Exactly.
it does take time to allow these things
Yeah.
to evolve. How do you feel we can continue to push this profession forward based on all of your experiences and what you foresee coming down the pipeline in the future?
I mean, listen, I think this is one of the best. I mean, of course, we're a little biased, but I
Sure.
feel this profession is so, it's so beautiful and so important. That's another thing, because being here, and I'm surrounded by a heavy Latin community here
Mm,
in South Florida, there's something that I always teach my patients, respectfully, is the importance of what role we play in the health industry, and in the health of a person. Because
mhm,
sometimes, and it's just a factor of that they may not know. I'm not talking, in general factors, but a lot
mhm,
of patients sometimes ask me, what is the difference? If I have a sty, do I have to go to an ophthalmologist? I mean, questions, I get that quite a lot. And or patients are like, no, my vision's okay, I don't need to get my eyes examined. And then when I teach the patient, hey, listen, we're able to possibly even save your life by you getting checked, and all the things that we can see, and all the things that we can, treat and diagnose, et cetera, et cetera. And when they are informed, they say, oh, wow, I didn't know, it's just the importance of the role that we play.
mhm.
And that is something that I definitely want to transcend. I want to continue, is teaching the importance of what we do, and having the respect, I would say, that of course we deserve, but in the sense of, for those that don't know, that we're like, again, and this is different in Latin America, optometrists play a different role, and so just explaining, just for a second, even when I get to explain, what I'm seeing, and I tell a patient, you might have a little bit of cholesterol, have you checked? And they're like, how do you know that, And I'm
It's
like,
eye-opening.
well, because we are, yeah, it's eye opening. We're just not only providing you with glasses, which are obviously very important, but all of the other things that, we are able to do. So that's something that definitely I want to transcend here in the community, and just the importance of what we play as optometrists.
Well, I greatly admire that you're doing that, and the reality is we should all be out there shouting from the rooftops. We are the primary eye health and vision care
Absolutely.
providers. We practice preventative
Absolutely.
medicine. We are putting out, fires throughout the body all the time by coordinating care with the appropriate individuals with early detection.
Absolutely.
That
And
is
I'm so
wonderful.
proud. Hmm.
Oh, yeah. I love your story. It's beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing, and I want to be sensitive of your time. So, is there any final thoughts that you want to share with anybody listening just about everything that we discussed in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is, at the end is, don't, if you feel like you want to venture out, if you want to, explore other aspects of the optometry field, because there's so many things that we can learn, so many
Hmm.
avenues that we can go, to not sell yourself short, to be able to do it, even though if it might be a little bit scary. It's never too late, and it's okay to ask questions. And to also, if there's places or experiences that you may not like, then, take that with you and then move forward, don't get stuck in one place.
And we'll leave it at that. Don't get stuck at one place. Keep evolving, keep
Keep
pushing
evolving.
yourself
Yeah,
and the profession
absolutely.
forward.
Yeah.
Well, Alma, for those who want to connect with you, maybe they're inspired by your story or they just want to reach out and talk, what's the best way for them to do so?
They can find me at an Instagram. We're Weston Eye Care Center. And yeah, they can also go on the website and they can find me there.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share all that you shared today, your story, which is incredible. And
Thank
for
you.
those listening, of course, and for those listening, make sure you subscribe, share, and stay tuned for my next podcast where we can reflect and grow stronger together.